Hi everyone, I am Shane, and I am in a tree. Now, you may be wondering, why am I Shane? And why am I in a tree? To answer the latter, I'm here to talk about organic architecture. And what's more organic than a tree? Only all carbon-based matter. Now, much like organic food, organic architecture has actually been around for literally ever. But it wasn't until the 20th century when someone came around and actually started calling it organic. And that someone was Frank Lloyd Wright. And anyone who tells you otherwise is Frank Lloyd wrong. Frank Lloyd Wright was a deeply spiritual man who believed in the beauty of nature and advocated a holistic approach to architecture, which emphasized the site and program. This unique holistic approach to architecture stood in stark contrast to the cookie-cutter, mass-produced mentality that fed the machine of modern architecture in the early 20th century. Frank Lloyd Wright didn't build for machines, he built for people, and occasionally dogs. He also invented the right angle, which is why they call it the right angle. But that's less important right now. What is important is to emphasize that this form of architecture wasn't trying to replicate nature, but merely wished to function and integrate itself into its surroundings, as though it was formed by nature. That being said, Wright was very fascinated with the spirals of seashells, and he really wished to recreate this form in his architecture. Unfortunately, the technology to allow him to do that just wasn't quite there yet during his time on Earth. However, we live in a new time, and so does an architect known as Eugene Tsui. Now, much like Frank Lloyd Wright, Eugene Tsui also practices organic architecture, under the guise of evolutionary architecture. But unlike Wright, Tsui much more literally bases his designs on those of nature, as he believes that nature is already perfected architectural form. And yes, those forms do include spiral designs.
But wait a minute, what's so special about spirals?
Ha! I'm glad you asked. It's time to get trippy. Yo, don't you get any funny ideas now? Ah, yes. Trippy. Now, much like bananas, spirals are found throughout all of nature. But unlike bananas, they are based on the Fibonacci sequence. The Fibonacci sequence is a series of numbers where each number is the sum of the previous two numbers in the sequence, which forms a beautiful spiral that is nature's most efficient means of expanding over space. This is precisely what Eugene Tsui was using in his second design for the Wilson house, which would accommodate for future expansion without compromising the primary structure. This house also used recycled plastic and aluminum cans, recycled auto tires, beetle-eaten trees, and used a passive heating and cooling system that used no mechanical parts or energy. Now, that's pretty awesome if you ask me. But back to spirals. Now, what I'm holding is my favorite vegetable to stare at. To watch a video on my favorite vegetable to eat, you can look up my dandelion greens nutrition rant on YouTube. But with no children around. And preferably not at work, and maybe with no volume on.
But not now!
Right. Not now. Now is the time to stare at Romanesco in all of its fractal glory. See, what you're seeing here is a nearly perfect self-replicating fractal formed by two opposing Fibonacci spirals. This creates the fascinating illusion that no matter how close or far out you view the object, every part of its form looks virtually identical. In fractals, this is referred to as self-similarity. Another fascinating aspect of self-similarity is that the further you zoom in to view a fractal's form, the depth of detail increases, creating a near paradox in mathematics, where this increasing depth of detail actually results in a theoretically infinite spanning curve around the perimeter of the form, as the length of the curve continues to increase the further you zoom in. Now, that's a lot to wrap your mind around, especially since budgetary, time, and talent constraints prevent me from illustrating it further for you. So in the meantime, let's just keep staring at this beautiful Romanesco. Now that we've sufficiently stared at some fractals, it's a good time to point out that the tree I'm sitting in is itself actually a fractal, with each branch breaking off in the same fractal pattern, which is pretty neat. Boy, would I love to talk to you more about that. But it looks like I am unfortunately running out of time. I'd also love to tell you more about Eugene Tsui and his incredibly energy efficient, sustainable, earthquake, fire, and weatherproof designs. He also wants to build a 2-mile-high tower called the Ultima Tower that would house 2 million people while only covering a 6,000-foot diameter at its base. The entire building would be hanging in pure tension, transferring the load from the top directly to the bottom while remaining virtually impervious to earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, and other lateral forces. The entire perimeter of the building would be lined with his own personally designed solar panels that would actually meet the energy needs of the entire building and the city contained within it. Each floor would also carry entire ecosystems of parks, gardens, waterfalls, and pools that would help keep the people living there feeling connected with nature. In his own words, and I quote, "The whole tower could be thought of as an upward extension of the earth, with layers of vegetation growing level by level. The building is thought of as a living organism, capable of sustaining multitudinal life at many scales." That's not what his voice sounded like, but now you at least know I was quoting someone. Man, did I say I'm running out of time? I wasn't lying. I really need to get out of this tree. But I've certainly enjoyed talking at you, and I really hope that I have piqued your interest in organic architecture, fractals, and especially Eugene Tsui's evolutionary architecture. And if I haven't, well, then it looks like I may be the one who's Frank Lloyd wrong. But I'm not, for I am Shane. Farewell, my friends. Have a glorious everything.